Welcome to this evening's event. I'm not going to do that all again, but welcome to this evening's event on friendship and cancer. It's Trekstock's Lifting the Lid. It's a series of thanks, Alex. It's a series of talks about all of the issues that affect the young cancer community. So I'm going to introduce you to the panel. I'm going to go in the order that I can see you. So I'm going to start off with you, Glyn, if you could tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do and why you're here.
Yes, so my name is Glyn. I work for CLIC Sargent, a charity that works with under 25s who are diagnosed with cancer and their families. I work as part of the social care team at UCLH in London. And essentially we work alongside me specifically. I work in Essex. I'm a community worker in Essex. I do a lot of home visits, working in schools and in the community. And we work alongside young people and their families to try and support them with all the non-medical impacts of cancer. So that's often financial, applying for benefits, it's school, it's work, it's the practical side of things. But a massive part of that, and a thing that comes up time and time again, is friendships and relationships, and that feeling of isolation and everything that comes up with friendships when you have a cancer diagnosis. So it's a big part of how I support young people and their families as well.
Amazing, fab, thank you. And Georgie, I'm going to come to you next.
Hiya, so I'm Georgie. I'm a young adult ambassador for Trekstock, and I was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma twice. So originally in 2018, then again in 2019. But yeah, I've just found, so Trekstock was something that I found very early on in my diagnosis, which I was very grateful for, because like you've already said, Glyn, and struggling with isolation, I really felt that, and meeting people going through something similar through Trekstock was a lifesaver for me.
Amazing, fab, thank you. And Pippa, I'm going to come to you next.
Hi, I'm Pippa. I'm 28, and I am Georgie's best friend. So we've been friends for, gosh, probably like over 12 years now, probably over 15 maybe. So my sort of role here is kind of just to answer any questions, I suppose, on things that I did to try and help Georgie, given everything that she was going through. And that's kind of why I'm here.
Amazing, fab, thank you. Sadru, I'm going to come to you.
So my name is Sadruz Zaman. I am 24 years of age now. I had cancer when I was around 17, around A-level time, so I couldn't complete the A-levels. I finally got into university this year after 5 years of rehabilitation, and I'm so happy with that. I've applied for a carer's job recently, and they're just doing my DBS check and everything, and said I've been accepted, so should be starting soon.
Amazing, that is so exciting. Well done, you. That's so fab, yeah. And then last but not least, we've got Dr. Catherine.
Hello, hi, I'm Dr. Catherine Hibb. It's lovely to be here. Thank you very much for asking me along. My background is I am a doctor, but I'm also a specialist in psychosexual medicine, working in London. I've also done quite a lot of work around communication, looking from an academic side, and also have worked with quite a lot of people who've gone through the cancer journey, and also generally, and I've done some webinars for Trekstock before, so I'm very happy.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much to all of you for being here. Actually, Catherine, I just want to say the light behind you is magnificent right now. It's lovely.
Is it good?
It looks lovely.
It does. Hope it's not blinding you too much. That's great. So thank you so much to you all for being here, and attendees, thank you so much for you guys to be here, for being here as well. So to kick things off, I'm going to throw the floor open to Georgie, and I would love to kind of hear a little bit more about your story, Georgie, a bit more about your kind of diagnosis and your recurrence, and a little bit about your relationship with Pippa as well. So over to you.
Well, thank you. So I will keep it somewhat brief, because I think if I go into it too much, the last 2 years, there's a lot of information. So in September 2018, I was diagnosed with stage 4 Hodgkin's lymphoma. When I was diagnosed, it was already at quite a late stage, because I hadn't picked up on the symptoms that I was having as being cancer. And like most 26-year-olds, I was like, no, I'm fine. I don't need to go to the doctor. but when I was actually diagnosed, it was already in both sides of my neck, both sides of my chest, under my diaphragm and in my left lung. And I got thrown into 6 months of chemotherapy, which I had every 2 weeks, and was very lucky to reach remission in March 2019. And then 3 months later, unfortunately, it came back. The unwanted guest decided to join me again, and I then did 3 months of weekly chemo, followed by an auto stem cell transplant. I had the actual transplant on the 30th of October, and you spend a few weeks in hospital after that. So I'm now, I think it's about 6 or 7 months post transplant and in remission and slowly getting healthier and stronger again, which I'm really pleased about. Pippa and I, like she said, we go way back, and I think we actually started being friends in the most unlikely of places, in the school gym, exercising. Which one time,
just the once.
It was very much like, you know, when you connect and you go, we should go on holiday with each. Should we just go on holiday with our families? Yeah. And then it was just friends ever since, and I haven't been able to shake her. I've tried, but and yeah, I mean, just, I think I'll dip into it lightly now about Pippa and I's relationship when I got cancer. She was very much, and I'm very lucky I have like a group of close friends, but Pippa was I'm losing my words, was without a doubt my like support system. The minute I got diagnosed, she rallied my friends, setting up like a WhatsApp group for them to be like, look, this is what's happening, this is what we need. She went, tell me all your chemo dates because I'm coming to all of them. I will be at your house, I will pick you up, I will take you. And that was all the practical things. So it was, you know, she'd come with me to hospital appointments or to chemo, but then there was so much else like behind the scenes, like the stuff, like the emotional stuff, the squishy stuff that you need your friends there for. And she was there, which I couldn't thank her enough for, because I was pretty lost. And I've had like both ends of the spectrum when it comes to friendship and cancer. I've had the friends that have really shown up and gone, I am here, I will be here, and I will do whatever you need. And then the other friends that have kind of disappeared out of the scene a bit. Mm-hmm. But no, Philip was amazing.
Philip. What a great nickname. And Pippa, so you and Georgie have known each other for a while, as we've heard. How did you feel when Georgie got diagnosed the first time? And then how were your feelings different when she got diagnosed that second time? Because obviously there wasn't much of a gap between her finishing treatment and then getting the remission. So how did you manage those two situations?
I think the first time, to be honest, like Georgie said, we thought it was glandular fever. We were convinced, you know, we'd just come back off holiday. We had an air conditioned room and she had to go out because she couldn't breathe properly. So when she sort of first told us, we were all like 100%, you've just got a bit of the glange, you'll be fine. But actually then when you got diagnosed, we got a message on the WhatsApp group, obviously because, you know, she was really upset about it and couldn't actually verbalize it at the time. And it's kind of like, I don't know, like it was just a feeling of just wanting to try and do something, because you can't, like, you feel helpless, you can't do anything, and your friends going, you know, I can't even imagine what it's like to get that news. So we just kind of initially wanted to just try and show as much as we could that we were going to be there. Mm-hmm. So we put together this pink unicorn hamper that had, you know, Jilly Cooper books in it, ready for when she was sat there for an hour, and
cheap trash. I love it.
Oh yeah. 100%. But that was, I have to admit, like at the start, the most wonderful thing is you get this influx of support and this influx of like your friends, you know, being incredible. And I was very lucky that like my main friends stayed there, and they, like Pippa said, put together this amazing hamper with, you know, all the bits for when you're bored in hospital, like a hot water bottle, something to like take water in, books, a unicorn teddy, which I loved. And that was like that show of, right, we are here, we'll be like behind you, and that show of force was incredible at a time where I couldn't process what was happening, and I struggled to talk about it, and I didn't want to talk about it, but they just went, look, we're here.
Yeah, amazing. That's what you need, isn't it? So one of the things, so I host a podcast with Toby Peach, who is another Trekstock Young Adult Ambassador. And one of the things we talk about on our podcast is those around us. It's one of the themes for the first series. And yeah, we talk about that because we know that cancer affects the patient, obviously, but also we know that it affects the people around them a lot as well. So Sadra, I'd be really interested to hear from you on kind of how you found your relationships were impacted by your cancer diagnosis, and how did you find that changed over time? Because I think, you know, we as young adults who've had cancer know that cancer doesn't end after treatment does, and obviously you're a little way out of your cancer treatment now. So yeah, I'd be really interested to hear how you think your support network kind of changed over time.
Well, if you had asked me that question 2 years ago, it would have been very emotional, as well, from the beginning, before cancer, my life was all hippity-hey. Everything was good, and plenty of support around me at all times, as I was quite intelligent, quite a jokey sort of person. And during cancer, I had so much support from people I didn't even know, and I really appreciated it so much. As soon as my cancer went and I got all clear, it started slowly fading away, the relationships I had with people. And I found that a bit weird. And I did realize that my personality had changed. I'd become more nervous.
Yeah.
I used to always be a confident person. So yeah, just only a couple of years ago, I started realizing that the most important people are the people in my house right now, which are my family. And after that, everyone else is just a bonus. So I've made plenty of new friends which have the same situation, the same background as me, sort of, with cancer and everything. So yeah, I love the charities. I've met so many nice people, and I've learned so much. And even though I have a tendency of speaking not out of character, but speaking wrong, like what I say might not be what I mean. I say that I'm very inappropriate at times, and it can cause a lot of trouble to me. But only recently I realized that I should just be quiet for when I need to be. So when I don't have something positive and helpful to say, then I won't speak at all. So yeah, that's my key to life.
And do you find that like when you meet new people now, is your cancer something you talk about with them, or is it something that you don't discuss when you like make new friends, say?
Well, I like to make, if I do meet someone that hasn't had cancer before, then I wouldn't mention it. Right. Just because I don't like people being easy on me.
Sure.
As I used to have during cancer. So now I like to work for everything. But for the people that I do know are very great, and I think I'm quite a communicative person. Quite sociable, I think, and I've motivation leads you everywhere, honestly. Dedication to your work, and that gets you everywhere. So yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. Glyn, so I'm going to come over to you now. You do a lot of work, as you said, on the kind of emotional, practical and financial impact of cancer. From your experience, what do you think the biggest challenge with regards to relationships is for young people going through cancer treatments? And what do you think, like on the flip side of that, what do you think the biggest challenge is for those supporting that young person going through cancer?
Yeah, I think the challenges for both are very similar. I think if you, because I think it's easy to focus on sort of the nature of cancer and the impact of that, but I think it's also really important to look at the nature of friendship and what a friendship is, and essentially, you know, all friendships are founded on sort of common interest or something shared or something understood or something you have in common, you know. So whether, you know, that starts at school and it's in the school gym for Georgie and Pippa, or if it's you know, you both hate maths and you get to slag off the maths teacher together, or, you know, and as you get older, it develops into common interests, whether that's sports or common values or whatever that is. And I think that is what a friendship is. That is what any relationship is. It's that shared understanding. And once cancer comes in, it just completely rips that away from both parties. I think it's that feeling that I now have this massive thing that you can't connect to, and I can't communicate and this impacts everything. It impacts every part of my life. It impacts the financial side of things. It impacts education and work. It impacts friendship. It impacts family. It impacts home. It's not just physical. It's not just the medical side of things. And so I think from the friends' perspective as well, like this, no one expects, no one goes into a relationship, no one goes into a friendship at this age expecting that this is going to be something that you have to deal with. And so I think a lot of friends just find themselves completely out of their depth. Like the whole point of this is that we go out and get drunk, or we go out and have a laugh, or sort of play games or watch films, or whatever it is. The deal wasn't that one of us was going to have to take care of the other one while they're on chemo. So I think that becomes the really isolating thing of suddenly you feel detached from everyone, because especially in groups as well, it's not just sort of two people together. It's actually your whole group of friends is all focused on I'm aware that I work with 16 to 25-year-olds, so there's a lot of exams and study in that and during that period. But all my friends care about exams, and right now that's the least of my worries. All my friends care about going to university. All my friends care about learning to drive. All my friends care about getting jobs, getting on with their lives, and and I'm completely apart from that. So I think it's just that feeling of, for the patient, it's isolation. It's feeling like I'm completely on my own now, and no one else gets this. And for and for the friend, it's just that feeling of I don't know how to relate to this. I've got no frame of reference here. I've got nothing to draw on. And it's difficult to know where to start.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not going to bang on about the podcast because that's what we're here to talk about. But that's something that one of our storytellers said. Actually, they said when you're diagnosed with cancer, what kind of a wall goes up between you and your peers, and you kind of have to figure out how to take out the blocks so that you can see each other and all of that kind of stuff. Glyn, just before we move on, just one thing on what you said there. How do you think that the common values within the cancer community helps form those relationships? So you said, obviously, from your regular peers, you're a bit further removed, but you've then obviously got this commonality with this brand new community of people. How do you think that those common values help make those friendships?
Well, I mean, one of the things we that we try to focus on, especially working in Essex, is that in the London hospitals, you tend to, you get to be in wards where you're, sort of surrounded by other people of similar ages, going through it. Where I work out in Essex, very often you're diagnosed by yourself, so you might be in a chemo suite with people in their 60s, 70s, 80s, and you can feel very much on your own. So we try and have peer support groups. I try and match people up where I can, and we find that that friendships can become very intense very quickly, because that feeling of isolation, suddenly, my goodness, someone gets it. Someone understands what it is to have that to have that particular drug flowing through your veins. I remember one event we did with a bunch of lymphoma patients, and one of them just happened to notice that since the chemo, they've developed a phobia of the color red. And they couldn't, and then suddenly, but everyone was just, yes, I've never said that before, like no one's, and suddenly everyone was like, yes, it's the color red, it's that color, because as soon as that goes in, it's the taste and it's the feeling of it, and it hits you straight away. And so actually just seeing that same shade, seeing that same color brings it back. So relationships become very intense very quickly.
You, isn't it? Sorry, I interrupted you.
But no. What I would say is the flip side of that, and why I think it's so important for for those friendships that were already established, and for friendships like, you know, Georgie and Pippa are so important, is those intense relationships are very much based on the moment. And right now we're both in this moment together, and I think sometimes the danger is that you then go in very separate directions, and you know, one of you might start to get better and another one might relapse, and you feel yourselves drawing apart, and suddenly that connection you had feels even more strained. Mm-hmm. So I think with friends, you know, like with Pippa, like with people that that can be more consistent and can offer that consistent support, I think that's really, really, really crucial. Peer support is vital, to find other people who get it, who really understand that. But I think also having, you know, underneath that long-term consistent support by someone who can be there through the whole journey with you is absolutely vital.
I think there's definitely something about as well, recognizing that, you know, relationships go through seasons. Like I think, you know, I think it's Alain de Botton talks about this, and he's an amazing philosopher, and he basically says, you know, if a friendship lasts for 5 years, then we should like value it for what it gave us during that time, and I think that's a really powerful way to think about it. And you know, relationships do change and they evolve and people change, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. And I think recognizing that kind of within the cancer community and external from that, I think is a really powerful thing. Catherine, I'm going to come to you. So you've done a lot of work on communication. Why do you think that people kind of fall down or fall short sometimes when they're trying to communicate, or when they're trying to make those relationships work? And what tips would you give for those going through cancer and their support networks on how to communicate better?
Well, I think there are loads of things that, you know, I think to pick up on from a communication point of view. One of the things with Georgie and Pippa, which I think is brilliant, is using something like a WhatsApp group very quickly. Yeah. Because there's one thing that happens with all cancer treatments, is that it moves incredibly fast. I mean, I think, Georgie, you said that, I can't remember what the adjective you used, but you were basically thrown straight into treatment, and it goes so quickly that there may not be enough time to really have a full sit down with your friends and say, this is what's happening, because you don't actually know what's happening either. And I think what is nice about a WhatsApp group particularly is if you don't feel like having a big chat, you don't have to have a big chat.
Yeah.
You can just have a little, hi, how are you? You can have a, how's it going? You can have a, anyone around for a chat. You can just send out little messages that you can instantly talk about, because I think it is important that you keep these channels of communication going. And as Glyn said, it's important that, because there are going to be these, it's like a shock to a friendship, really, and you have to sort of hold each other through that, because it's unknown ground for all of you and your friends. And so, and it is a two-way thing, so that, you know, the friends have to reach out, but the person going through treatment also has to remember they have to kind of reach out and help the other friends to be able to stay in contact, because usually we're all confused. I think people who haven't gone through cancer, and particularly young people, because you haven't never had maybe a big shock in your life or a big thing that changes your life. You know, as you get to my age, you usually had a few things that have shocked your life. You kind of get a bit used to it. But, you know, when you're young, you don't. And so you're going through something that other people haven't yet experienced, and maybe don't know quite how to handle or what to say. And they're frightened about saying the wrong thing, usually.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Upsetting you or making it worse. And I think it's that thing of just, I think as Georgie was saying, I'm here. We are here. We are here for you when you need us. And I think the other thing is that people have different friendship styles. And some people want their friends. Some people want their family and don't really want their friends. And I think it's accepting that that person needs whatever they need at that moment while they're going through their treatment. And not to feel rejected if you're not the person who's chosen to come and, you know, to sit in chemo, or if it's, you know, if at times that person who's going through is saying, I really don't want to talk about it right now. It is that thing of, I'm here, how can I help? You tell me how I can help you.
Yeah.
And that
the thing you hear a lot is the thing you hear a lot is, let me know how I can help. And actually what you need is somebody. I think for me, when I was going through treatment, what I needed was somebody to say, I'm going to come around and do the dishes, I'm going to come around and hoover, I'm going to bring you your dinner, like all of those things. And I think there's a lot, like, I really agree with what you were saying there. And I also think there's something about kind of from the other side, and again, this is something we talked about on the podcast, sorry. It's letting people show up for you in a way that works for them. I think that's really important as well. Yeah, thank you, Catherine. I think there's some really interesting stuff on there. So to Catherine's point, just to kind of take that a step further, you know, I think we all, as young cancer patients in general, we all have our kind of feelings about what the right language is for us and what the wrong language is for us, and saying the right thing and saying the wrong thing. So inevitably people do end up saying the wrong thing. Sadru, how did you deal with people saying the wrong thing for you, in inverted commas, whatever that might have been?
People saying the wrong thing to me, or me saying the wrong thing to them?
People saying the wrong thing to you, like, you know, saying, can't think of a particular example, but if you've got any, love to hear them.
So during cancer, I used to be I had my mindset of me being perfect, like I had to be perfect.
Sure.
And people always told me that you don't have to be perfect, and that was a trigger for me, because that means that I'm not perfect, but I don't have to be. And that alone made me go to tears, and I was very sensitive, very emotional. I literally, one minute I'll be crying, one minute I'll be laughing. I'll be laughing at the fact that I was crying as well. So, but other times it can be more.
We've all been there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a really, like, you know, you identified that was kind of one of your triggers. And were you quite open with your friends about that? Did you say to your friends, oh, I don't like it when you say that, or did you just kind of let them say it and get upset about it and then move on? What was your kind of approach?
Back then, I wouldn't say I was really understanding of my whole situation. I was a bit naive as well. I thought everything was normal when it wasn't.
Sure.
Well, I guess I didn't realize until later. But most of the time, my friends were intelligent enough to know the difference.
That's good. Yeah.
But
amazing.
I really enjoyed the fact that some of them actually took made fun of me when I had cancer, even though it sounds bad, but it made me feel really like good to have someone not be so nice to me.
Right, it's actually kind of funny. Yeah. And Georgie, how did you deal with people saying the wrong thing?
I was a nightmare, I'm not gonna lie. Because one day if someone said, if someone said, oh, you look really good bald, I'd go, oh, thanks, that's amazing. Whereas the next day if someone said I looked good bald, I'd be like, oh my god, how could you say this? I hate, like. And so my emotions were really, like, even if someone said something that was lovely and positive, I could have taken it a completely different way. I think one of the instances, and I always feel really bad using this one because I adore my friend who said it, but she said when I was losing, you know, nearly every eyebrow hair, I had about 3, and and this is the thing, whatever anyone says, they say it from a place of love. No one is outright trying to say anything that's going to hurt you. But she goes, oh, your eyebrows look really great today, and I burst into tears being like, how could you say this? There's nothing. But she was just saying something to try and make me feel good and make me feel better. But because I was having a bad day, I thought it was just the worst thing ever. And what I learned, I think, when I had cancer the first time, I had no idea what I wanted. I had no idea how I needed my friends to support me. I had no idea how to communicate with them. So I found that, like Glyn was saying earlier, you know, you and your friendship groups are so used to, for me, it was like going down the pub or hanging out together, socializing as a group. And I couldn't do that. So instead of me saying, I need you guys to pop round my house for an evening, I just didn't say anything. But then I would be upset that they weren't saying anything to me. And it was only when I relapsed, I actually learned how to communicate with my friends. So if someone said something to me that I was a bit delicate about, I'd just go, oh, you know, I'm just feeling a bit insensitive about my bald head at the minute, like, joke with me in a week's time and I would be fine.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
And
That communication is so crucial, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. But honestly, when it comes to saying the wrong, I mean, I tell you one thing, the one thing, ladies and gentlemen, to not say, I'm going to say especially to a female, because I imagine we may be slightly more delicate about our hair, is if someone's lost their hair to chemo, I can't tell you the amount of people that said this, is, oh, you look great bald. You should stay bald. You should choose bald. And I'm sitting there going, what? But it's always from a place of love, always.
Absolutely. And Pippa, like kind of leading on from that, were you wary of saying the wrong thing to Georgie? And were you ever on the receiving end of the one day it was fine and then the next day it wasn't?
Probably.
Yeah, I think if anything, I was like hyper alert because I didn't want to say anything that would ever upset her. I only wanted to say things that were going to build her up and make her feel good. And you're not always successful at that. Luckily, we didn't have any specific things that I had said where I had a case of foot and mouth.
No.
But I do remember, you know, I was, every time I'd like WhatsApp her, it was like, just check it, like rereading what I was sending to be like, is this something that could be taken the wrong way? Or is it something that, like, you know, you just say off the cuff and then you go like, oh my God, I can't believe I said that. And then like, you're kind of waiting to be like, I really hope I haven't upset her.
One thing I have to, sorry, Pippa, sorry. I was going to say, the one thing I was going to say about Pippa, which, sorry, it's my turn now. Shush, shush.
You can tell these two have known each other for ages, can't you?
One thing I found really funny with, not funny or like special with Pippa was, so out of our friendship group, like I was the first one to go through something like this and this sort of trauma, but Pippa never actually said anything that came across wrong, or she always seemed to know the right things to say and the right thing to do without me telling her or asking her. And I think a lot of that is she was amazing that she like went off on her own and did a lot of research about my cancer, a lot of research about what I was going to be going through. I mean, she came to me, look, you're going to be having these hot flushes of symptoms, so I've got you this box of what they called ice packs, like, so when you're having it, I've like, Pippa was very good at like fielding what was the right and wrong thing to say already, which
that's amazing. Like, that's quite a skill, I think. And I think, you know, not everyone is necessarily that intuitive. They might want to be, but they might not be able to manage it. And I think it's really interesting that Pippa obviously like hit that right on.
Can I ask? I'd just be interested to hear from Georgie and Sadruz, especially on this, because I think obviously I mean, Pippa seems like the dream, sort of friendship-wise, in terms of
head will get too big. Don't.
I'm doing all the right things, but I guess the other sort of dilemma is between. I think a lot of friends feel they're so afraid of saying the wrong thing that they say nothing, and I think that's when you kind of get that, you know, sort of complete, you know, ghosting almost of. I'm not going to text, I'm not going to say anything, I'm not going to visit because I'm going to upset them, I'm going to say the wrong thing. I guess for Georgie and Sadruz, like, what would if you're talking to someone who's in that position, who's so afraid of saying the wrong thing that they're just currently sitting in silence, what would you say to them? Like, is it better for them to take the risk and potentially say the wrong thing?
Yeah, Georgie, do you want to go first on that?
Yeah, I will, if that's okay. I mean, it's so hard, isn't it? Because I've never been a friend to someone going through something like this, but from going through it, it's, if you're not sure, just ask them. Because at the end of the day, the person who's just been diagnosed with cancer has no idea what is going on anyway. So you're both in like a similar boat. I would just say, reach out. I had a lot of friends who I thought I was really, really close with. And as a couple of weeks went by and it was, oh, Georgie's too sick to go out or do stuff, I felt it was, they were distancing themselves and you end up just not even speaking. And I think it would have been nice if they sent me a text and said, I have no idea what I can do to help you. Can you tell me what you want from me? And I would have gone, yes, here's your list. No. But it is, I think it's just having those honest conversations, because it's such a weird situation. It's so hard to try and comprehend from both sides, from the friend and the person going through it. And it's just saying, what do you need from me? What can I do to help?
Yeah. I think when I was just recently diagnosed, I barely even knew my name. So like, how, like, I knew my date of birth and my hospital number, and that was about it. But yeah, I think you're right, that communication. Sadru, anything to add to that?
Yeah, well, with me, I was, sorry, I have this blank moments. I forgot what the question was.
Don't worry, the question was, so what would you say to people who are worried about saying the wrong thing and maybe then don't say anything? How would you encourage those to talk?
I would, well, for me personally, I think it's different for everyone. But when it came to me, I was like, you say one thing to me, like, my face looks nice today, I'll be happy about it. My face looks nice tomorrow, I'll be crying by it. Yeah. So I'll be very on and off, like a roller coaster. But for the most part, I'll say, if you know the person, take the risk, treat them like normal as much as you can, and be willing to ask questions, and be prepared at all times, and be very sensitive as you can, because the response can always be different every day. I think when you're on treatment.
Sorry, I was just saying that's so true, because I always found, like, I mean, and everyone's so different, and I know this, but I'm very open about my cancer, and I would rather someone ask 10 questions than ask none. Yeah. So that's it, isn't it? It's just saying, like, just ask whatever you want, and if they're uncomfortable, your friend is going to say, I don't want to talk about it. But the chances are, with everything that's going on, it's so new, it's kind of interesting, like, they're going to want to talk about it and share what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, honestly, I think that if you do speak to them about the cancer, it helps them for the long term. If you talk about, like, the day, how's the day been and everything, that's okay for the time, for short term. But when it comes to night times, I used to always feel really upset during night times, like my happiness just goes out the window. So I think if I did have more conversations about the cancer, it would have helped a lot. Make me realize.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, and just like hitting people at various points throughout the day. Like, you might feel great on a morning, but by 9:30, when you're exhausted and a bit sad and a bit teary,
all crying.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a really, really good point.
And is there a sense as well, I mean, the rules have changed, you know, in terms of, if we had a conversation previously and I burst into tears, or you'd really upset me with something, that, you know, that might be a real sort of dent in our friendship, or you know, that, and I guess a lot of friends might make those same conclusions, that I've just said something, you've got really upset, I guess we're no longer friends, and actually not being afraid to go back and try to resolve that, or, you know, and remembering it's not about you.
Yeah, Glyn, you're absolutely right. I think what Georgie says about people coming from a position of love, with most friends, that's exactly where they're coming from. And they can be clumsy, and they can say the wrong things, and you can have the wrong response. There is no wrong response, but whatever response you have may not feel like helpful, or it's about actually just continuing to communicate and not take things personally if you can, and recognize where the other person's coming from, and forgive each other, forgive yourself, forgive each other.
Definitely, yeah.
And just keep connecting, you know. Yeah, I think that's where things like WhatsApp are great, or just being able to send a text saying, sorry, didn't mean that, having a bad day, or, you know.
Got that wrong.
Got that wrong.
That kind of thing. Yeah. Actually, Catherine, I think there's something, and Glyn kind of touched on this as well. Sometimes there's quite a lot of work to do to repair a relationship after cancer. What would you recommend as the kind of best tools for repairing relationships? And also, I'm really interested to hear from you, at what point do you draw the line and say, okay, this one was for a season, it was for this part of my life, it was great. And, you know, sometimes relationships end for a reason. So I'd be really interested to hear your kind of tips for, like, repairing those relationships, and then, like, when you decide not to.
I think the first thing is always to always ask yourself, what do you want? I think it starts with, do you want to keep this relationship? Do you not want to keep this relationship? There are some relationships you just have to let them go. They're not in a bad way, but maybe they're not the right relationship for you now. You have been on a journey, you're in a different part of your life. Maybe the people that you enjoyed going out with are not necessarily the people who are there to give you what you need now, or can help give you what you need. And people have different strengths and abilities, and there are some people who are just not very good at giving support.
Yeah.
It's almost not in their vocabulary. They don't know how to do it. They don't know how to access it. And sometimes it sounds cool, but they're just not interested, and they will carry on with their life. But it's very, very painful, because you can feel very abandoned by some of those people. But as you were saying, there are other people, I think, Sandra, you're saying that, you know, after, you know, you're coming into a new world, there are people that you will then meet and you will form new friendships with, and you will have new connections with, partly because what you need has changed and they are more able to give it for whatever reasons. And I think you have to, if you want to build a relationship, or you want to get a relationship back, the first thing is you have to go, do I want to do this? Is this person giving me what I need? Is this person a person that is good in my life? Or am I just really hurt that they weren't there, and I kind of want to get a sort of resolution, and I want them to apologize? Because you know what, you may never get that. So there are times where we can get very angry when people didn't. And, you know, and I think sometimes we have to let that go as well, and go, actually, is this going to benefit me chasing this, or is it better for me to move into a more supportive environment with people who I find are helping me? And that acceptance can be very difficult, because it's almost like a bereavement. It's almost having to mourn the loss of a friendship or of a time. But that is always painful. But you've got something new to go into. So I think with anything, it's like, do you want to start this relationship? If you do, be brave, take the first step. Somebody has to take the first step to getting back into a communication. And it starts by just putting the first communication out and saying, do you want to meet up?
Yeah.
And then just being yourself and seeing, but asking yourself is, you know, if that meeting you feel doesn't go well, then start saying, well, how long do I pursue this before I just say, do you know what? Enjoy your life. I'm going in my way now.
Yeah, no hard feelings, but
yeah,
maybe let's draw a line under it. Yeah, lovely. I think that's a really good point. So I've got a couple of questions from the community here that I want to talk to you guys about. So I've got a question here. It says, loved ones go through it with us, and I want ideas of how people said thank you to their loved ones for being amazing and looking after them. Sadru, do you have any thoughts on that? How do you say thank you to those people? How did you say thank you to those people who really stepped up?
I was a bit of a cheeky kid, so I didn't say thank you. I was expecting it, so I was, but they knew if they saw me happy, that was thank you to them.
Yeah.
Just because I think that not only the patient, but people around the patient need to realize what we are going through. So when we don't say something, it doesn't mean we don't think it. And when they should be more easy on us, we can't tell them to be it. They should just tell us, just because we give up, it will put us at ease, letting us believe that we haven't done anything wrong, technically.
There's a lot of subtext, isn't there, I
easier.
think? There's lots of like stuff that goes unsaid, but is maybe suggested, or at least I was thinking about this question, and I was like, I don't know if I actually ever said thanks to anyone, but hopefully my actions said sufficient. Georgie, what about you?
I'm actually sitting here thinking the exact same thing. I don't know
Why
how
are we
many
all so ungrateful?
I don't know how many people I've actually gone, thank you.
Yeah.
Like, I hope I have, Pippa, thank you.
You definitely have.
Thank you. But I think, I mean, just thinking in terms of like with my mum went through it really, like my mum was there for every appointment, without her having the illness, she went through everything with me. And there are times that I was the worst to my mum, where I was really unwell, tired, my anxiety was up to here, and I would just be like, Mum, I just want to be by myself. And immediately after, I'd be like, oh my God, I'm so sorry, but you're feeling so ill. And you're immediately, so the next day it's, oh my God, Mum, I'm so sorry. And the amazing thing with your support network is half the time they're going to go, it's okay, you're having a really rough time. I know you don't mean it. But for me, it was always like, I had to say, I'm really sorry, thank you, I love you. And I think your support network know, or I hope they do. And I hope I said thank you.
Yeah. We've just had a question from Tony here, actually, which links on to what you were just talking about really nicely. She says, more family focused, but I wondered if you could discuss the relationships with parents. I worry about them so much and I want to worry them as little as possible. Sadru, Georgie, either of you want to kind of take that? Sadru, I mean, I guess, Sadru, you were a little bit younger, weren't you? So, yeah, I guess it was like, you were a bit younger when you were diagnosed. So I guess it was almost a bit more like a responsibility, like they had to step up.
I've only recently hit maturity at age of 23 and I'm 24 now.
I'm 28 and I'm still not there, so it's fine.
32 and...
Yeah, honestly, for my parents, I think when it comes to my parents, I could say I'm alright as much as I want. It wouldn't make a difference. I would still think that they are upset and that would make me more upset, which makes them more upset again. So what I could do is just listen to the doctors, try and enjoy my life as much as I can, be out of bed, be as productive as possible, basically, and do what I can, just them seeing it will make them smile so much and it'll make you feel better as well. And then
I think that's it. I think no matter what age your children are, I get the impression, I'm not a parent, but I get the impression that as long as your kid seems happy, that's a lot of what a parent wants, and when they've got that, they feel a bit less worried. Georgie, any additional thoughts on that?
I massively agree. So with my dad, if he asked me how I was, I would be like, I'm fine. I would be in hospital, plugged up to a million machines, and dad would come in and go, oh, you look fine, you look well, you're well, aren't you? You're fine, you're okay. And he needed to hear I was okay. Yeah. Otherwise it really affected him. So with my dad, I found myself always going, I'm fine, I'm okay. Whereas with my mum really saw the dark bits and the very sick days. And I think that's really affected her, because everything I went through, even though mum wasn't sick, she was there. Even if, so days where I was having my transplant, she would come into the hospital, she wouldn't talk, but she would be there no matter what. And I've seen a lot of the emotions that I've gone through, she's gone through the exact same ones. Yeah. And now I'm thinking I need to try and be like, Mum, we're okay, we've got this, and we need to look after each other and pull each other through it a bit more. Whereas with my dad, it's I'm fine, but I don't know, it's so odd, isn't it? How it is with your family, because I just want to tell them I'm okay, but then at the same time I'm like, Mum, I'm not okay. Help me.
I can, because I think again, Tony asked a very similar question about a boyfriend as well, and I think it sort of lends itself to the same concern that lots of people have, whether it's family, boyfriend, girlfriend, or friendships, is that feeling of well, who's supporting them? And one of the things I work on, again for a smaller group, but on occasion where there's some worry about friends, I'll go into school and run a workshop with students on friendship and how to support their friend who's going through this. And my number one thing, which always grates, which always makes them feel really, but my number one thing is look after yourself. My number one thing is where is your support? And that always, it's especially in the early days, it feels really but it's not about me, it's about them. I'm focusing on them. And actually the truth is, you're not doing this for you, it is for them, because the flip side of it, as has been mentioned, when it comes to relapses especially, or it's the longevity of how this is going to affect you. And so many friends go in strong at the beginning, and then 6 months, a year, 2 years are just completely burned out, and that is where a lot of people tend to drop off. And I think I think Tony's concerned about the people who love me, the people who are looking after me, well, who's looking after them? Yeah. And I think those are really important questions. And I think if it's something that you are worried about, I know some people that will that have gone to say their boyfriend's best friend and spoken to them and said, look, can I just make sure that you're taking care of him, so that he can take care of me? But even if you don't know the friend of a friend to talk to about that, just having the conversation with them, and 9 times out of 10 they're going to say the same thing. Oh, don't worry about me, it's about you.
I'm fine.
But just coming back with, I'm not saying this for you, I'm saying this for me. Like, if you know, in the long term, if you don't have that support, if you don't have someone you can go to, you're not going to be able to take care of me, and I need you to take care of me.
That idea of you can't pour from an empty cup, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that communication actually is really, really powerful from you, because if you're giving them permission to go and get support from someone else, there is this tendency to think, well, we will have to close together and battle on it, you know, as a unit, but actually to recognise that they need to go and maybe go down to the pub and talk to a friend, or, you know, and talk about you, and talk about specifically about you, but what they're going through. And it almost can feel like we can sometimes feel hurt, well, they're not sharing it with me, but actually, no, it's important they have other people other than you. We all need a support network around us that's bigger than one.
I think that people, like carers, in inverted commas, develop their own coping mechanisms. So, like, my husband had 2 main coping mechanisms. Number 1 was panic napping, where he would come home from work and nap for like 6 hours. Oh my God. Just like literally fall into bed and nap, and eating chocolate oranges. They were like his two main coping mechanisms. And I think, you know, people do develop what works for them. Gosh, this has flown over. We've been chatting for nearly an hour. I've got another question here. So just wondering, thoughts on relationships in the time of COVID. Online chats are exhausting, and I'm just not able to keep up with WhatsApp, etc. I'm also having a recurrence and feel people's goodwill to support is wearing thin because they have so much other stuff going on. I mean, Georgie, I think you're the perfect panel member to answer that.
Well, this is the thing, like, and I always have to sort of retell myself this. So when we went into lockdown, especially for people shielding, it's you're stuck inside the house, you're not allowed out, you can't go for walks, you can't, you know, go for these socially distanced walks with people or anything like that. And it's horrible. I mean, I was relatively fresh out of my transplant, and to then be told you're on lockdown, it was really hard to adjust to. But what I need to remind myself is this is a new and quite scary situation for everyone. So yes, you've already going through something and you're already in lockdown, but so is everyone else. Like, this is a completely new scenario and quite a scary one for everyone. And so there's this element of, you have to understand that they probably can't give as much as they usually would, because they're scared, they don't know what to do, or they don't know like what they're able to do. And for me, what I found is, especially now, I've got friends who will come and like drive outside the house, and they'll sit in their car and we'll have a little chit chat from a big distance. And I think it's maybe saying to your friends, guys, I'm really lonely, I know we're all in a really weird situation, but does anyone fancy just popping around for a 10-minute chat? And I know that's hard because we don't all live near each other, but it is I think maybe just communicating, this is what would really help me right now, because I'm the same. My WhatsApps and my phone, I get to a point where I just don't want to look at it, I don't want to text. I need human contact. And in this coronavirus, like, you can't have that contact unless someone literally comes and drives over and like sits outside of your house, which is a bit of a pain for a lot of people. So like, it's definitely a challenging one, but it's just speak to your friends, and if they're able to come around, I'm sure they will.
It just comes back to that communication again. That's what this all comes down to. So my closing question, I'm going to ask you all this. So what, I guess it's kind of a recap question. What one piece of advice would you give to A, a patient, and B, their friends and loved ones on communication and cancer treatment? And I'm going to come to Glyn first. My number one for friends is to listen.
I think it's easy to go in with a list of, these are the things that I'm going to do for you. These are the things that that will help you. These are, these are my theories. And I think you've just got to accept that you don't know right now, and you need to listen. And if that means just sitting and shutting up for and just allowing the silence, or allowing them to really get to the root of what they need, because they're figuring out as well. Like, just they might say one day, this is what I need, and the next day it's not what I need anymore. So actually just spending time like helping them to figure out, and waiting for them to figure out what they need from you as well. So just listen.
Perfect, that's great. Georgie, one piece of advice you would give to a patient and or their friends or loved ones?
I think for friends, and this was something that I really struggled with and liked when friends did it, is I really wanted friends to come with me to chemotherapy, and I said at the start, I'd really like people to come with me, but I then felt really awkward saying, are you free this day? Because it's a day off work, it's a day sitting in a hospital, it's not exactly a fun day out. And so I would say, I would like my friends to come to chemotherapy, but if you guys can tell me when you're free, that'd be great. And that's something Pippa did really well, is she'd go, right, you've got chemo on this date, and this date. I will come to all of them. And I was like, brilliant. Thank you.
Job done.
But this thing, so for a friend, if you want, if you're available to take someone to a hospital appointment or to a chemo day or radiotherapy, whatever it is, don't say, oh, well, if you want me, that's great. Just say, I'm free on whatever day, or I'm free this month, or I'm free. Actively give information to say, I am free on this day, if that makes sense. And I think for a patient, my advice to them would be, this is a very new situation for all of you. So even though you're going through a lot and treatment's hard and there are these big changes, you've got to have a little bit of allowances for your friends, because the chances are they haven't done this before and they don't know what to do. So speak to them. Once you've got an understanding of how you're going to be feeling, let them know what you need. So if you want your friends to come over, if you want them to treat you like normal, or if you need some help with stuff, just ask, just speak to them.
Perfect, that's lovely, thank you. Pippa, I'm going to come to you next. So I guess for you the kind of key bit is well, actually no, you can answer both sides, I guess. What piece of advice would you give to a patient, and B, their friends and loved ones on communication and cancer treatment?
So I thought about this quite a lot, and I think I've chosen the same word for both, which is forgiveness, within reason. I think as a patient, like Georgie said, some of your friends are going to say stuff that you're like, oh, that's really upsetting, and it comes from a place of love. And like you said, Alice, they're going to be clumsy. Yeah. And then you've got the other side where, like me, I was completely overbearing, and I just wanted to know that she was okay all the time, and it was probably quite exhausting because I was quite needy.
Oh God, no, I loved it.
And I think from the other side, when you're the person, if you do make a mistake and you have said something that has upset them, or maybe you haven't been there enough and you felt like you could have done more, forgive yourself and then try again. I think that's quite an important thing from both sides.
Great stuff, that's lovely, fab, thank you. Catherine, one piece of advice you would give to a patient and their friends or loved ones?
I think a lot of it's been said already. I think from a patient's point of view, this is all new. And from the friends, you're all going through a new experience, and that means you have to learn, and you need to learn together. And that means keeping the communication going, listening, be brave, be tolerant, offer your help, and don't be upset if it gets turned down. Likewise, if you want help, say I need some help, and don't be worried if somebody doesn't rise to it immediately. Try again. And I always think I know you've almost all of you will have heard this quote, that the Dr. Seuss quote, which is that those who matter don't mind, and those who mind don't matter. So be brave and communicate.
Perfect. And then lastly, Sadru, anything that you want to add to that? Any thoughts that advice you would give to a patient and their friends or loved ones?
Yeah, so I'll say when it comes to the patient, we care more about feelings and how everyone else is doing more than ourselves for some reason.
Yeah.
I know we're so in love with some reason, but basically I think for the people that are not the patient should just let the person with the patient cancer know that it's okay if you say something that you don't mean. I will not take anything to heart. And the other people, the friends of the cancer patient, should always be easy on themselves as well, because they are obviously struggling probably as much.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Great.
that would be
Yeah, perfect. Well, thank you so much for your time, guys.